Good morning, New Eden.
I'm Michelle Adrian. I'm the CEO of eRookies. I have been doing lots and lots of CSM19 candidate interviews. So today is Frozen Fallout's turn. And incidentally, right after this interview, I will be hopping on his, so then you can switch to his channel and watch me. So if that's not confusing, I don't know what is. We'll
Back-to-back interviews, two reporters running for office and interviewing each other. It's really interesting being a reporter while doing this because
yeah.
it's like, can you imagine one of the reporters that you know of like going like, yeah, I'm running for office. By the way,
I know,
I'm going to
right?
be on the news all the time.
I mean, is there anything more Eve than this? So let's just go ahead and get into it. Introduce yourself. Tell us when you started playing, why you started playing, what you do in Eve.
Absolutely. So I have an extremely long journey that I've been on in Eve. I'll try and condense it down. I know that I wrote a book already, and I'm actually making a book about my life in Eve. And so it was kind of nice to have that, like, introduce yourself. But I've been playing since 2003. Um, I jumped into the beta for about 3 seconds, maybe longer than that. But I was like, I don't know what the heck's going on. We were all playing a bunch of MMORPGs. I was came out of Ultima Online, which has a very similar theme of loss and destruction and mayhem and building up an empire. Um, and so Eve seemed really interesting, but the new player experience was. I mean, if you think it's bad now, you can't even comprehend what it was like to get dropped into the middle of nowhere. There are no missions. There's nothing for you to do. But there's so much potential to be had here. Um, and so it wasn't until about 2006 when I really started playing. I'd taken a look at it here and there, but I didn't really get into it until I made Frozen Fallout. And then from there, I've been all over the galaxy. I've been, in Great Wars. I was first into faction warfare the moment that it came out. I built up a corporation, Mecha Enterprises fleet in faction warfare, and ended up handing that off. And they went on to create Fed Up and do a lot of other really crazy stuff that I'm very, very proud of. I wish that I could say that I was the one who did that, but I didn't at all. I founded it, and we built up a bunch of. For years, we were just the pit bulls of the Gallente. That I didn't care about flexing or money. We cared about murdering people, and so we lived in like Nenemelia for many, many years. We did a lot of fun. But then I spent, a better half of a decade, if not more, hanging out with goons. I got sucked into the real life parties that they were throwing in my city. There were bi-yearly 2 parties a year that they had goomps that they would have in my local area. I got to meet a lot of really cool people, and but I always just kind of stayed a grunt. I got to hang out and party with a lot of cool leadership people. Like Cyan is still my DM. He's run Vampire the Masquerade games for me and stuff like that. Um, but there is just a lot of really crazy things that I've seen being part of, 0.0 Empire for a long time. But I've always felt that faction warfare has always been my home, and a place where I could try and build up something and, not enter the ranks because I partied with a bunch of leadership, but because I built something that I felt was super cool in EVE Online, which is this forever war. Like I find it funny when people come in and say, what are you doing? How are you going to win the war? We got to win the war." And it's like, win the war. We're here forever. Welcome to Valhalla, my friend. We're here to party and blow things up. Winning the war is not on our mind because it's not winnable. Like, no side gets to win this. All this is for fun, my friends.
Good stuff. So, what made you decide to like become a CEO or alliance leader? Because I think you're alliance leader.
I mean, I wouldn't say necessarily an alliance leader. We do have the coolest alliance in the game, the Federation Frontline. I run the Federation Frontline report. We have, a scattering of alt corporations basically that I have that we've built up. But overall, we're pretty much just the Federation Frontline report. We are a podcast, and I always had the idea of doing like an alliance streaming podcast. Like we're the front line we're reporters with guns. We're mercenaries. We're hired by the Gallente to spread propaganda and we are a propaganda organization. And I've talked to the Keldari in the town hall, and one of their questions was like, how are you going to not be biased towards the Gallente? And I'm like, straight up, I am a Gallente propaganda organization. I can't say that I won't have biases. What I can say is I have a super strong bias towards low-sec, pirating, and faction warfare that trumps the Gallente. And that's surprising because how much I do love my Gallente. So, the desire to kind of do this all kind of came out of, I just want to, I love that you get to build a sort of sandcastle in EVE Online, and I really want to make sure that I get that chance to build up a sandcastle, and I've been trying to do it for many years, and I feel like now I have a lot of antediluvian experience behind me to do it.
Well, you'll be happy to know that Kashal comes from a long lineage of strong Gallente, the Adrians out there. So
absolutely.
All right, so you're campaigning for CSM19. What are your 3 campaign points for this year?
So my 3 campaign points are reasons to undock, the strong community, and having a enhanced new player experience.
Okay.
They've come a long way. They've got a long way to go with the new player experience. I think that that's super important. I think that we need to have better tutorials. How come there isn't a mention of a D-scan? How come there isn't a mention of, how to find a Plex, D-scan the Plex, warn them that if you see a ship inside at 0.1, AU at 360 degree outside of a Plex, that there's probably maybe an enemy inside of there. It could possibly be dangerous. And teaching them to warp at 100, to a Plex. These are little things. There are certain things that I do think that you need to be careful because new player experience can butt heads with the community because the community can provide a lot of this, such as yourself, providing a lot of these tools for these players. And if CCP is able to enhance the new player experience through tutorials that they provide, there's less access or less content for new player focused organizations to have. But I don't think that that's necessarily my point of view on that. Is that I think that that's not, there's plenty of complexities in EVE that you don't need to weaken the new player experience in order to ensure that the new player community has something to teach new bros, because there's so much to teach new bros, and some stuff does not make sense for a tutorial for sure.
100%. So, speaking of new players, what do you think is the biggest challenges facing new players today?
I think that one of the biggest hurdles in EVE Online is in the new player experience is, to be honest, and this is going to be weird to kind of say this, I think, but there's a big hurdle of you're just a spaceship in a pod. And I know we've tried walking in stations. The route they went was bad, and it failed miserably. As we can see, we don't even have any walking in stations anymore.
Right.
However, if I could go sit down at a bar and I had an avatar, if I had the ability to walk up to Jitta shops that are kind of set up by players and stuff like that, if there's, poker that I can play or some kind of game that I can play at the bar with my buddies, darts and pool and all these other things, making, station life something that is encapsulates you into being like, oh, I'm actually a person inside of this universe. um, I think that's a huge hurdle. That's easily, you don't need fancy graphics for this. It would be
Right.
nice to have fancy graphics, but you don't need something that melts a computer. What you need is a functioning, um, not cartoony version of you know like what Earth and Beyond had,
Right.
you know 20 years ago. It's doable. And it's interesting to see, because I have friends that I've had try the game, and a lot of them are like, I just can't get into this. Actually, a lot of my female friends that I've introduced have specifically pointed out like that just being a ship sucks. Like, give me more. I don't. It was awesome to make my character and look at that, treat that the character creation was cool, and then all of a sudden that was
Yeah.
nothing in the game at all.
Yeah, I think I get asked a couple times a month, how do I, fly in first person? And it's just like, yeah, don't do that.
But of course, there are a lot of other minor hurdles that kind of come in to the game. Understanding loss, like they give you a
Hmm.
free ship to lose. I think that they should give you not give you, but you should work your way up, get a ship. It should be very explicit that you're going to a very dangerous area of space and send you to low sec,
Right.
and there should be like an introduction to the different areas of space and death and ganking. Um, there should be a highlight on that, and I think that also this goes to my point of a strong community, is that CCP should put way more stuff in game to direct people to new player communities. I
Mhm.
do think there needs to be like a vetting process, so that does take some resources, and you have to be careful about favoritism. You have to make sure that it's accessible to people that are small or people that are just starting up. Um, but an in-game community board that you could put a bunch of NPSI and a bunch of training activities, and yet sometimes due to the system that they've created, there are always and due to Eve just being a dark evil place, there are going to be some assholes who are going to come in and
Mhm.
try and mess with stuff, so you have to be able to ban them and stop them from being able to access your fleets.
Yep.
um, there does need, so it's not as easy as saying, well, just put it up on the open up your fleet and let anybody in. And it's like, well, if I do that, well, just mark off all the bad guys. And it's like, well, you have to be, that becomes a huge list of things inside the game, as well as other areas that you're already doing that. And you have to be really, it's that's harder, much harder than just having it built into the how we use Discord, how we interact with and have people join these fleets. But I think that CCP could really do a good job of putting spotlights on the community
Mhm.
and interacting with the community much better. They should do more community fleets. Like there should be, especially I think personally, and maybe this is, and I'm not saying this is right, and I just think this would be cool. Would be that CCP should have game developers that jump on and say, "Okay, Caldari, we're going to the battlefield," and then the Gallente, a CCP dev jumps onto the Gallente and says, "Okay, Gallente, we're going to the battlefield," and then they spawn a battlefield. And then they go at each other, and they have one
Yep.
CCP FC dev against another CCP FC dev. Make it spontaneous, make it so it's not but it's something that you can just broadcast into the militia chat and be like, boom, here we go, let's do this. Because if you plan it out like a week ahead of time, Snuff will
Yep.
just be like, okay, how can I break this? But if you have like a 10-minute jump,
Spontaneous. Yep.
you can just jump on and gather up, and CCP will gather up 50 people quick. They
Mhm.
don't need, it's like, I'm jumping on, I'm getting all of us together, we're going to the battlefield, we're doing this right now. And you will see, especially if it's something that happens a
Mhm.
lot, and spontaneously throughout all time zones, it would be super cool. Like these are things that I think they could do, and then the other ways of shining spotlights on people that are doing this stuff already.
So, do you think all of this put together would be enough to improve player retention? Or is there another something that CCP needs to work on for player retention?
Well, okay, so the other kind of thing that I think is really rough on Eve, and is really up to CCP to decide on and look at the books and see what they're really kind of doing here, is the price of Eve is ridiculous. I know inflation happened, but if you it deflation, there are different markets for different things. Some things have had inflation. My toilet paper has gone up. But my Final Fantasy subscription has gone down. There's deflation in the MMORPG market. If I had to pay $10 a month or $7.50 a month, you'd probably see me having. I only have two accounts right now, but maybe I'd have three or four. So you would see. I think that you would still not lose out on money to a certain degree, and player retention is way going to skyrocket if you can get them in for cheap.
Okay.
The and deals and things on getting new players in, and not having to um, pay this ungodly cost to play this game. I mean, $20 a month is crazy, and I think that hurts player retention.
Okay. So then I asked Young Puke. Now I'm back to not being able to say his name again. I asked Young Puke the exact same question about this. CCP kind of wants to push players into faction warfare as like the first place where they're going to encounter PvP with real people, encounter real people in general. But they have kind of failed because there's
Hmm.
nothing about faction warfare in the career missions or the NPE,
Hmm.
and you do have the air career mission thingies, but it's just like this little section about PvP, lose a ship and all that stuff. It's not really pushing you to faction. And then they kind of put faction warfare in the opportunities, but again, it's not really telling people how to do anything. And I know myself, I have enlisted a character now, but there's really nothing telling me what do I do next. How would you tell, or what advice would you give to CCP to get from the career missions to faction warfare? That
I think it
bridge.
should be a path like it should be something that has a whole tutorial on its own that is very centric on like first get them. My idea would be for a tutorial would be first get them to, okay, you want to sign up for the faction warfare career path. Okay, you're going down this. First thing we need to do is choose what faction that you're going to be able to join. Check, and all players should be able to join any faction at the very beginning. Um, and if they've tanked their standings, well, there should at least be one that they'll probably be able to have joined, depending on maybe some crazy stuff that they've messed around with before coming down this path. But the path should basically be go to a station, sign up for faction warfare. Okay, now that you've signed up for faction warfare, let's take a look at one of the coolest maps that CCP has ever created. And it's so beautiful. It looks so great. It's very easy to distinguish, and you can look at the front lines and say, hey, front lines is where it's at. This is where people are fighting with each other. This is where death, destruction, and profit is to be had. So let's go to a frontline system nearest to you. Have it route them to a frontline system as soon as they get there, and it should kind of tell them along the way that there might be gate camps along the way. Like as soon as it hits low sec, it should be like, now low sec is a really dangerous thing, let's hold up here and ensure that you don't have a really expensive ship. You should be in something like a cheap frigate, something that can move around very quickly. And then, if the player ignores that, then they jump their battleship in and we get to shoot a battleship. It's great. But if they get their frigate through, a lot of the times, you'll be able to get that pretty easily through into low sec. And if they get blown up, it should kind of let them know that just getting out to here is a possibility you might die. So make sure that you have the ability to reship and try it again.
Right.
Players are going to try and stop you from achieving this objective, even though they don't even know that you have it. Get them out to a plex, a scout. Have them go to the scout, descan it, warp it at 100, do a D-scan on it, maybe even have them ping off and warp off and come back. You can have a lot of little easy just directions for people to be like, hey, let's create a safe spot real quick. And then you can teach people how to make safe spots, because this is super important in faction warfare. Then you get them into the Plex, you have them complete the Plex. They might die, they might live, and until they've completed a Plex, you don't move on to the next thing. But the next thing, once you've completed one Plex, an offensive Plex, also they shouldn't have offense and defense, but that's a whole, there's a whole thing on faction warfare. But they should, what they have at least right now is they should have it be an offensive Plex. Make sure that they get at least enough to get a Comet blueprint for their LP. Maybe it's not even complete a Plex. Maybe it's complete enough Plexes to get a Comet BPC or a frigate BPC. And then you take them in, have them go to the LP store. Also, the LP store would love to revamp this thing, because nobody teaches you how to do anything in the LP store. And you can get negative ISK per LP if you really don't know what the fuck you're doing. So you have them go over, get this thing, build a Comet, fit up the Comet, be like, okay, this is because the faction frigate, everybody should be able to fly, right off the bat. Or at the very least, a very small training. I don't believe you get all of the frigate skills in the beginning, right? But you get, pretty easy access to that stuff. And then, you kind of take them through that, and then make sure that there also is once again, a community board or something for faction warfare in that faction that can help them direct into, how do we get into what are the different discords that I need to join? Are there any channels that I should be joining? Stuff like that would be really awesome if CCP kind of guided them very strongly into it. I think it needs to have like a solid person that knows what the hell they're doing in faction warfare, design a tutorial for a new player to walk through, and it's just like a 20-point mission, that they need to do, or 20 missions that they need to do. And once completed, you're like, okay, I think you're ready to, figure it out from here,
Okay, cool. So, when was the last time you ran through the NPE to see if they added anything for faction warfare?
So I think I ran through a chunk of it, and I definitely didn't go through a whole bunch of it until the faction warfare expansion that came out 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
So
sorry, I'm dumping soda down the front of my shirt. So, like I say, today's a great day. Now we're going to kind of switch, and we're going to talk about community. At least to me, community is very, very important. What is your definition of community in EVE?
I think that community is a very broad term in EVE Online, because there's a community of high sec miners that don't interact with anybody and never have gotten ganked and just are doing their own thing. And possibly, they've found their hidden little area and they've created a small community. And then there's like the bigger communities that we know about. EVE rookies, we've got the Spectre Fleet does a lot of community stuff. The Goons have their own community. The Imperium, on top of there's communities within communities within communities in this game. Going all the way up to coalition level communities that exist. Events that are being thrown by players, stories that are being built by players. The thing about the communities in EVE that I find to be really unique compared to any other video game out there is that we get one universe that we play in. There's some argument and there's some other thing, there's a firewall that was been put up to prevent a true one universe, but we basically run one universe, right? We don't have multiple servers that if you're not on my server, you can't interact with me. You have to pay to come over to my server. You have to start a new or whatever. We also have a community that is not. We need you to get to level 60 before you can play with us, or whatever max level thing is. If you're not max level, you can't do content with us. We'll drag you through all the other content at lightning speed until you get to our content. That's not EVE Online at all.
Right.
There's true communities that are being built here, doing all different types of crazy activities. We have this is a simulated universe. This is beyond an MMORPG, if you ask me. The news outlets, like reading the Imperium News or Eve News 24, whatever. There's tons of different news outlets that are out there. The Federation Frontline Report. You want to know what's going on in the Gallente Zone? Um, and there's tons of just really awesome um, you know, crazy different unique communities. So it's very, very broad, but um, I do think that the focus should definitely be on new player experience communities such as yourself, and Fun Inc. And people that have built up strong Eve University. I mean, that thing should just
Yep.
have like a giant spotlight on it. Not because it's like, oh, it's just favorite. No, look at what they've built. Like, look at the time dedicated to this. Like, this is the one. It's also one of those things. Like MMORPGs are so weird. How many man hours and massive amount of money is dumped into by third-party players to build
Mm-hmm.
third-party tools and third-party news outlets, some of which can make money off of websites and stuff like that. But a lot of it is just a time and money dump.
Yeah, 100%. I was just talking about that the other day. We have our own wait list for incursions. I mean, the amount of time and money that just gets dumped into this, I'm like, I didn't think that this was going to become a hobby like painting minis or, something like that. But
Yeah,
it
yes.
totally
This is
has.
worse than magic, man.
Oh,
Like,
tell me about it. So then, when we talk about community and Eve, there is toxicity out there. When I say toxicity, I'm not talking about the PvP, going and finding a new bro that, made their account 2 days ago and blowing them up. We all know that that's communication. Um,
I'm just trying to talk to you.
I know, it's like, I want to give you a hug. But, and it's not the propaganda, where you're warring with the opposite faction or out in the knoll with the different alliances. This is the taking the real world, I guess, ick, and bringing it
Mhm,
into the game, the racism, the
mhm.
homophobia, all this stuff. What do you think is an issue in Eve today in
Oh,
2024?
huge issue in Eve. It's the only game that I've ever, been threatened to be swatted, and
Hmm.
like, had to report people. It's dangerous because sometimes some of that toxicity comes out because it is a really dark game that has a lot of emotion and it's emotional reactions that our people are having. The other thing is anonymity allows for this barrier to protect you, and to allow for you to be toxic without any real repercussions, and that's dangerous and that's bad. You have to be really careful about that. And CCP, I think, is pretty good about if you report shit, it like you can't be just throwing shit out and being completely toxic out there without the possibility of getting banned from this game, which is good. But it is a dark universe that inherently brings this out.
Right.
The spy networks, the I mean, there is. I'm not saying that spy networks are toxic, but the idea of that being a centric part of how to run a giant superpower, makes it so that there. I mean, we've even seen it from CSM representatives going up on stage and being like, I'm the bad guy, so I get to be toxic and bad, and then realizing, oh man, actually, I shouldn't be toxic.
Yeah.
Like I can be a bad guy in Eve, but toxicity is really, really dangerous. And you know, this is one of the things that we need to police as players to a certain extent as well, shunning that kind of stuff, and banning that kind of stuff from our communities as well. Self-policing needs to be there as well to make sure
Yeah.
that there's to let them know that they're not welcome in our communities. And like every other toxicity group, they're going to form their own, but community, but let them have their own community away from us, and the
Yeah.
more that we can exile them from our activities, the better. Now there is, they are able to go around and cause chaos and do things in Eve, that'll you can't stop from interacting with them, but you don't have to hear what they're saying. What their actions in Eve are much. I don't really care about that. What's being spewed out of their mouth, how they're trying to change the paradigm of people to be, um, racist or homophobic or anything like this, or think that try and make it that that's an okay thing to do
Yeah.
is not right. So
So how do you personally or your community handle it when you encounter it?
we usually, so it depends on the level of toxicity. If it's a minor offense, somebody making a joke or something like that, or just being stupid, or they got drunk or whatever, warnings and telling them, taking them aside and being like, hey, listen, that's not what we're about. We don't have my community, specifically the Federation Frontline Report, doesn't have very stringent, specific rules on things. But I will say that I am the judge, jury, and executioner here, and that I get to make up the rules to a certain degree. So, um, I've gone to the point where it was like, no, you just did, like, there was a guest that we tried to bring on, they just started body shaming them and attacking them, and just be this guy was just be it's like, I hate this guy, da 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 da, and I'm like, nope, you're out, completely out, you're banned from everything, and we will never talking to you again, because that's just, we can't, I can't be like, this is a warning, you've gone too far,
Yeah.
and maybe years later when you come back and you have an apologetic, I fucked up, I didn't know, I was being stupid, we will let you back in, after maybe time has gone by, but that's also going to be up to you to come to us and be like, I'm
Mm.
so sorry, please let me back in.
Okay, cool. It's always good to hear that communities, take this type of thing seriously and don't let it, bubble and fester at the bottom level there. Now we are going to switch over to my favorite section of this particular interview. We're going to pretend that you actually made it to CSM19. I have my crystal ball and, I can see this. So, you made it onto CSM19. You got into your very first meeting, and CCP tells you the plans for the next expansion, maybe even the 2 or 3 expansions. Nothing that you have campaigned for or have an expertise in made it. So they're not going to do anything for faction warfare. Sorry, you got to sit in the sideline yet again. What do you plan on doing, since that is your expertise?
So first of all, I would say that just because it's not on their board doesn't mean that I can't help influence maybe getting. And one of the big things that I would be pushing for, if it's like, well, we don't get a major expansion, that's fine. Like, you gave us a major expansion recently. Especially if I could kind of push it in a direction of like, low sec or something outside of, faction warfare doesn't need this, but low sec needs a
Mm.
major expansion. Maybe I'd push for something like that. But for the most part, I would be pushing, the little things, ensuring that, yeah, you're doing a major expansion, but all throughout the next 3 years, can we just get a little things list of all the things that should be fixed and enhanced in faction warfare, in low sec, things that don't take massive amount of developer time, and and make sure that there's always a little things conversation going on. I'm always going to be pushing that paradigm. I'm always going to be ensuring that that voice is being heard. Um, and it doesn't necessarily need to be in faction warfare. I have a lot of expertise in a lot of different areas, and I have a lot of weaknesses in a lot of areas. So the areas that they're enhancing that I'm weak in, I would love to be part of that conversation, to put in my own input, that I kind of, what I feel that I can kind of put in, without being like, I'm an expert, this is what it should be, but make observations, ask the dumb questions. I'm a major incident manager in real life. One of the biggest things is we bring in the experts to fix the problem, but we make sure all the little things are taken care of along the way. All the documentation, all the, change forms are filled out properly. We find out who made the change that broke it in the first place. Why did this all happen? Post incident reviews, stuff like that. Like, you need to have somebody that's going in there and asking the dumb questions and looking, for opportunities to use what they do know, the wisdom that I do have, to enhance the conversation, and to also make sure I listen, and hear out what other people have to say when they have more knowledge than me. Somebody throws up a graph, I'm going to be like, okay, now I'm listening. Like, now, like, you have me. I'm not throwing up graphs, but I am going to show. I'm going to give my heart, And when you throw a graph at me, I make sure that my heart also stops for a second and goes, ooh, that's sexy. Let's look.
Okay, so then we're going to expand on this. If you play Eve long enough, we all know that something that we love is going to get changed. Something that our community uses heavily is going to get completely dropped or turned into something else. What if you find out that something that you are really passionate about is going to get changed, but it's for the better of the game? What do you think you're going to do?
Well, I would definitely make sure that, I'm trying to make myself as active in the conversation as possible with the thing that I'm most passionate about, and that this big change is going to be happening there. And I would always kind of push the idea of you got to be really careful with big changes anywhere. You have to make sure all PR is not good PR as much as it kind of can be. But at this point with CCP, when they reveal something that's a big, huge change, it should be a resounding success, like what happened with faction warfare, not what happened with Equinox. So Equinox, in 0.0's update was seen as a resounding failure. A failure to communicate, a failure to understand player needs, a failure to understand what was going on. The biggest complaints that I saw were out of like miners being like, well, these anomalies are shit. They're all just, one little rock or it's a bunch of little rocks. And it's just a really annoying. Where's our big giants, cool rocks that we can kind of chill out and mine for a long time? Where's some enhancements for us of our quality of life? And I would say always make sure that you have little enhancements of quality of life, and if you're going to hurt quality of life, that you have a good explanation for it, and communicate. I
Yep.
would be pushing for as much, we're going to be under NDA, but I would be like, I would be pushing for as much redaction, or as little redaction as possible. Making sure that as much information can come out, and that CCP needs to have open lines of communication with us on stuff, and really advocating that if there's anything in there that I disagree with, that they have a good reason for it, and that they should explain that to the public, and ensure that and just try and make sure that they're, doing it right when they come out, because it could have been a really great success with Equinox. And Skyhooks were a great success, and for some reason they decided though that it wasn't a great success.
Oh, you had to bring up
Um,
the S word.
yeah, well, I mean, that's to be honest, there's a small part of me that is almost like if the Skyhook change wouldn't have happened, I might not have run. Probably would have still run, but man, did I get just super passionate after that change. I was like, "Ah." Okay, but my main thing is just tell me why, CCP. Explain more. What was your vision here originally? Why wasn't it what it was there? Why was it what you made it? And what is
Yep.
the new vision for these things? Is it just about big blocks punching at each other with big ass ships? Or is it the little guy getting in there and being able to do a bank robbery? Was
Yep.
the vault door wide open? Absolutely. Could he have shut it a little bit? Yes, but now you put it in Fort Knox, and it's like, well, okay, all right.
Yeah, I don't disagree there. So then, if a community that doesn't have CSM representation, but is still kind of outside of the scope of your people, your community, were to come to you to ask for help, or I don't know, maybe they find you the most approachable CSM, in the council, are you willing to help them?
Yeah, so I've already been approached by some high sectors. DRB, had me on yesterday. And it was interesting hanging out with, and I've had him on my show before. I've reached out to different communities for sure. In the high sec community, if they had they were like, first of all, can you come on some fleets with us? I guess not first of all, but they were like, hey, at one point they're like, let's go on some fleets together. I'm like, yeah, absolutely, take me out. I've got an alt that can hang out in high sec. I can't, but I've got an alt. I'll go out and do some mission running and some incursions, or we can mine some rocks and just hang out and have a beer together. And I'm willing to reach out and experience new things. I've been playing for 20 years, but I know about 20% of Eve really well, and 80% of Eve, well, 60% of Eve that I know of and have touched and played with, and then like 20% that I'm like, wow, I really that exists? I didn't know that, you know. And all statistics are made up on the spot, so.
Okay, then the last question out of this particular line, and it's my favorite because it's really kind of have you thought about this, but players expect the CSM to go in and we're supposed to fix things, or we're supposed to go in and demand that CCP, reverse this thing, reverse the sky hooks, reverse, all the changes in Equinox. Have you given any thought about how you're going to balance the limitations placed on you as a CSM? I mean, we are only advisors, and there's that pesky NDA that's going to be put on you, with making sure that players feel heard.
I would say that I already understand very strongly that this is not a developer's job that I'm getting. I'm not signing, and nor am I a developer, nor do I want to be a developer. I have suggestions and ideas, but I would say that those suggestions and ideas are strongly the suggestion it's strongly just suggestions, and ideas that I want to bring to the table, and that can be played with by other people and the developers to come up with their vision. I'm there to change the paradigm. That's what I'm there to influence them on a level of counsel. Like you said, we are but here to be wise advisors to our great and powerful king CCP. And if they want, if CCP tomorrow says no more CSM, it's gone. We don't we it's too much for our budget or whatever, too much resources. Then it's gone. Like there's nothing we can do about that. We can complain and fight and rebel. And maybe there's well, I mean, community action might be, but the CSM is not the one that would be able to do this. Only by a community rebellion would you be able to influence something at that point. Um, I'm there to make sure that CCP has a voice of the little things, the little people, the low class, low sectors that are out there. We need representation as much as the super power blocks that are out there. And I think that one of my big focal points on changing paradigm is about making sure that they iterate upon things that they have left in the dust. There's lots of things over the years that they said that this is gonna be the new, brand new, awesome thing, and then I don't know, I forgot about that 6 months later, and then never touch it again.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of little things that could just be enhanced, and really picked up. So I'm there to make sure that there's that voice and that paradigm that's being presented to them, and wisdom being displayed, and to pick up a bunch of wisdom from all the other council members around me, and to support their wisdom when I see it.
Okay, very good. Now, one of my big community questions, or from my community, is your stance on multi-boxing. What the situation is I have one half of the people in the community that are multi-boxers, and they like to multi-box, I don't know, say home fronts or mining or other things. And then I have the other side who think that everyone should have one account and one account only, and maybe even torch the other two characters on the account, so you're only playing one character ever. What's your stance on it?
Um, I do think that input broadcasting, I'm happy that it got banned, and I think that that was a big problem, and I still think that it is a problem, because just because you banned it doesn't mean that it's not being used. It's a big problem. I think that I do multi-boxing on the level of two characters. I have my main character and my other character that my faction warfare pirate can't go to high sec, living out a low sec character, and then I have my high sec character that does all my hauling for me if I want to relax and maybe do a level 4 mission or something. Um, Maybe go on these incursions that people are talking about. I've got that, and then I use it for maybe a scout and then maybe every once in a while Kyle Rifter gets to decloak and start shooting some missiles at something. But 90% of the time, if he's even on grid, it's like, no, you're just there to watch, dude. And he's like, no, I could be so much cooler. Um, and I only use, I have one screen with one character, another screen with the other character, and the stream up on the other thing here. And then like a window behind, the second character that has like, some, the stats or Z kill stats or something like that displayed on the screen. So it's, I have to go from one screen to another to click over. I have to watch both of them. I don't like and I don't know how you ban it, or if and I'm open to saying that maybe we don't ban it, but I just don't like the assisted tools.
Right.
When I can click, 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 and you have all these screens that pop up and do it, and you've got this tool that helps you do all this thing, and it's not input broadcasting, but my God, does it look like input broadcasting? And it's impressive, StarCraft level, like clicks per second or whatever.
Right.
It's crazy, and I'm impressed by it. But I also am like, I'm never gonna do that, and it feels like cheating. Like if you had to have, like no assistance, and it had to be you had individually alt tab to get to your different things and stuff. Like, my God, would these multi boxers be way worse? The other thing though is that multi boxers are worse. If I get 5 of my buddies together, I should be able to best a multi-boxer of 5, especially since he's always going to be running the same fit. He's always going to be doing the same thing. He has to have like a super pattern to what he's doing. Get rid of drone assist. That'd be another huge, huge, huge thing we can do to get rid of multi-boxing advantages that they have. Um, but in general, yeah, there's a lot that we can do to make multi-boxing not as powerful as it is. But no, we should not go down to one character. We should not go down to forcing one account. I have many reasons why I have to have multiple accounts, and it's not to do have multiple characters in one thing running a thing. And if you're doing that, it should be kind of difficult. And there should definitely be a huge advantage to 5v5. The 5 people should come out on top. If
Yep.
there's, there could be skill differences here, and a lot of that comes into that. But in general, somebody that knows what they're doing with 5 people should be able to beat somebody multi-boxing, especially if you get rid of the assist shit.
Yeah, totally agree. So then, on other controversial things in there, how do you feel about skill injectors?
To be honest, I like them. I don't use them because all my 2 characters that would use them get nothing out of them. They're ancient gods from back in the day, so they don't need skill injection. I don't need skill injection. I don't use it for anything. I have in the past it removed some skills that I didn't need, and I thought that was kind of cool. I got to sell it off for some cash. Um, and I think that it's nice to have a system in Eve that allows for players to be like new players to come in and be like, okay, how do I gain levels? And the first thing that normally back in the day you'd be told, oh, you got well, first of all, learn all the learning skills. Spend 5 months gathering, all of these skills. Don't play the game though. If you're gonna during this time, we just want you to pay for the game. So that was way back in the day. Today is much more. You can walk in and be like, oh, just go make money. Go join faction warfare and make a whole shitload of money as like a day 3 character after you've gone through the tutorial. You can make an ass load of LP, turn it into ISK, and if you teach them how to do that, or just there's exploration, which also needs to be turned into ISK. But there's tons of activities for players to go do and be like, gain a bunch of money, and then you can spend that on enhancing your skills, and only do it up into the beginning. The ability for somebody to drop $2,000 and enhance their character into godlyhood is also whatever. I mean, other players have been playing for 20 years have god characters. Why shouldn't you be able to spend $20,000 on this game and get the skills? Because truthfully, that's not what's going to help you. There's the same thing with, oh, I'm going to buy 50 Titans and then I'm going to rule the galaxy. And I've just started playing this game. Go ahead and do that, man. This is gonna be great. We're gonna have 50 Titan losses very soon here. That's skill doesn't come from skills inside the game. It comes from playing this game, and
Yep.
and you can learn how to be better than somebody who's been playing this game for 20 years very quickly in this game. I think that it's okay to have that in game as well, not just have that as an out of game skill that, oh, and then buy a character or something. Like, no, I want all of us want to love our characters. Come on, like that's a Frozen Fall. It's a party game. We're not buying some god over here. I want to make Frozen Fall out of God.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about the character bazaar. I couldn't see Kashal ever going to anybody else. But okay, so I'm gonna go put it out there for the audience. If you have any questions for Frozen, go ahead and sorry, I was looking at a spam report. Spammers have been bad lately. But if anyone out there wants to ask Frozen a question, now's the time. Do you have anything? Oh, sorry, I did miss one question. What do you think is the most pressing issue in Eve today? Out of everything that we talked about, maybe something we didn't talk about?
I think the most pressing issue in Eve today is player count. Our player count sucks, and there's a lot of multi-boxers, and it's getting more and more prevalent to at least have multiple characters logged in. Much more likely, even a new player should have multiple characters, or multiple accounts, and those being logged in, and our numbers still suck. We need to really reevaluate. Like Eve is healthier at 60 to 100,000 people. I think I've only ever seen, I think 64 or something like that is like the record. But like if we had 100,000 people playing Eve at one time, and throughout the day it goes from 60 to 100,000, way better than what we're at. In fact, and Eve could grow much bigger and become a much greater place if we had 500,000 people. Yeah, the hardware needs to be upgraded, but man, they'll have the money to upgrade their hardware. And Eve is a very unique game where you can just create more and more space and spread people out a little bit more and just have more servers. We can have a massive amount of people playing this game, and it would be healthier and better and cooler to see just an insane amount of people playing this game. But we're like half the numbers that we used to be, and that's scary. It's going up-ish, I think, if I remember correctly from the last kind of reports that I was seeing. It's looking healthier. It's kind of gone down again, but it's
Yeah.
always that. But overall, there is like kind of a back up tick. Adding alphas should have. I don't know why that didn't insanely help the game. And once again, that goes back to player retention. Like if
Oh.
we can't keep the new people from play, like so many people have tried this game, and we need to get the people who've tried it once and we're like, nah. Then we need to get the people who've tried it for a little while and like, nah. We need to get the people who've been playing for 20 years and jump in and back out to come back. But most of all, we need the first playthrough to be something that really catches you. And I also don't think that it's tell them an epic storyline from Eve Online, that you're a hero, you've escaped the exploding station, and now you're going to take on the Triglavian threat. That's not Eve's story. Eve should introduce you to, you get to make your own story. Maybe give us even a journal or something like that. That like an AI generated journal that'll just like, as you do things, it'll be like, oh, Frozen Fallout did this, and here it's text. I mean, that should, even if it was a million trillion pages long, it shouldn't be that big of a file, right?
Excellent. So it doesn't look like that there is any questions. So then, where can people find you if they want to continue this conversation after watching the interview?
Yeah, so check out the Federation Frontline Report.com. We have our website, kind of gives you access to our, we have Twitch, we have YouTube, we have Discord, of course. We have our podcast that you can go check out, Federation Frontline Report. And we also have, Discord is an easy way to get a hold of me. In-game is an easy way to get a hold of me. Frozen Fallout in game. We also have the Federation space front space line. It's Federation front line in-game chat. You can always hang out with me there. And yeah, I'm very accessible. I'm on Twitch quite a bit. I am always open on my Discord. Hit me up in DMs, or even just talk to me inside of our Discord channel, and I'll respond and work with that. We also have the post on EVE Online. Their forums has the campaign poster kind of thing that I kind of put out there. There's a little bit of a book for you there, so so lots of places, lots of easy ways of getting a hold of me.
Okay, great. I will put all that information down in the description of the video once it goes online, and people can continue. So I want to thank you so much for coming. It was a very enjoyable hour, but time is unfortunately up, and I need to go and jump into your server for an interview.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me on. This was a blast, and you had some great questions. I'm a little envious. Cheers, guys.